there to focus on it? Right on.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, yeah. Look at this. Look at this for technical achievement here. It is Thursday. You see that? Isn't it high tech?
Yeah.
All right, I'm here with my friend Rick Johnson, retired senior water inspector of San Francisco. And I've talked with Rick a few times now over the last few months. We're kind of looking in as somewhat as the citizens off to the side, though Rick has some really good, a lifetime of experience and understanding different elements of where we're at with the water. So for our viewers here, we were going to talk about three basic issues that sort of affect specifically Marin County, but in general, it relates to all of California. So I think anybody in California or outside California might find this interesting. The three issues are a pipeline to provide water that's going to go across a bridge that leads into Marin County, and the desal plant is an option that they're looking at, and then the issues that surround us of mandated growth, and specifically like a little town in Nevada. Now, Rick, just in a nutshell, just tell everybody again about, just briefly, a couple of lines about when you retired, what were you doing? And
well, when I retired, I was working as project manager for the San Francisco Water Department on revenue recovery. And that project at that particular time had recovered over $30 million of revenue that was going out the back door. I was switched over to the wireless meter project. And with what I had found in revenue recovery, I was able to apply that over to the wireless meter reading project. And what I had found in revenue recovery became the basis for the city putting in that $63 million project.
Now, I guess that kind of implies either some form of waste, right? If you're recovering that kind of revenue, that means somehow you were either losing water or we're talking about dire conservation issues right now. So that's,
well, the main problem that the San Francisco Water Department was doing, they are a public entity, and public entities, according to state law, do not have to test their meters every 10 years or change them out. And so the water departments, if you don't make them do something, they won't do it. So in the system, I had discovered that we had meters that were 70, anywhere from 70 to about 15 years in age. And so over the years, we tested some of the more aged meters and then the middle of the rotors and all that. And we found that on the, they were slow, running slow. So there's your cash register running 35 to 40% slow. So we kind of upped it and said, okay, well, let's take all our 4,000 meters that we change out that are there when we do new services. So San Francisco has 181,000 services. They managed to change out 4,000 a year.
wait, all right. Let just jump ahead, Rick, because we're gonna jump ahead.
Okay.
Because we're gonna try to get right into the article, anyways, it just seems to me that it's sort of the whole issue right now that Marin Water District and in Northern California, it seems is worse off than Southern California at the moment, but that could probably change. So we have a story on the front page of the Marin Independent Journal announcing to this local community, Marin County is a peninsula that has the Pacific Ocean and the San Francisco Bay between it. And so it's kind of unique and has its own water district with its own little series of reservoirs. and a good rainfall, good winter will fill up those reservoirs very quickly. But a series of bad ones, or even just a couple of years of bad times, and then suddenly we're in trouble. So, I found this article so much more interesting than I even imagined. It says desal options shelved, focus now on bridge pipeline. Now, it appears that even though they say it's been shelved, here, I'll read a couple of paragraphs here. Apparently they thought about renting 2 desal plants to avoid potential depletion of water supplies. I don't want to get into that too much because it's a complex thing that I don't even understand. Do you know anything about this renting of the desal plants, where they were going to be renting them from?
The only thing I can think of is that they would rent one that would be bigger than the one they rented before. And I have no idea who they rented it from, but the one they rented before was just on a trial basis, and it put out 191,000 gallons a day, which is kind of funny because that would be 1 gallon for each and every one of the 191,000 customers. If you wanted a gallon for everybody, you would get it through just that particular plant. For instance, the biggest plant in California is the Carlsbad one down in San Diego, and the way that they Poseidon, they're the owners of that plant. They pitched to the San Diego water people. They said, "Look, we're going to build this plant. You can lease. It's like a lease buy of the water that they do down there." Well, Poseidon wanted this as their big entree into desal in California. So they already had a power plant built next to it, and so they purchased the power plant.
All right. Now, Rick, I'm going to interrupt again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Let's get back. I had this big question mark when you said about renting a desal plant. What am I supposed to visualize with that? Is something on a flatbed truck? They roll up to the side of the bay? How do you rent a desal plant?
It was, think of a couple of railroad containers.
Oh.
Couple of containers. That's what I never visited the last one. I just saw it. But just think of a couple of railroad cars, and that would be your portable plant.
Anyway, the gist of the beginning of this article is that they're shelving this idea of rental that would have cost $30 to $37 million. 2 temporary plants would only be able to generate a quarter of its daily water needs. Ben Horenstein, who I spoke to a month ago, says it's not a good deal, basically. Now, to get back to this 5 to 6 mile pipeline across the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge that could carry 10 million to 15 million gallons a day, they're apparently are putting that back on the front burner, though they can say that they've already been in contact and are working to negotiate with several suppliers in the Sacramento Valley to buy water allotments from sources. And these are, I assume, big ag people who can let their land grow fallow and sell their water rights to Marin County. Is that pretty much, you think, accurate?
Right. They're think of it as in a football game, lateraling the water from one agency to the other. So their water will wind up with East Bay Mud, and in the meantime, East Bay Mud will send some of their own over to Marin Municipal.
Yeah, interesting. The article says here, unlike desalinization, a pipeline does not guarantee the district will receive any water. Well, yeah, I guess that's for sure, but I don't think you want to begin to build it unless you got something lined up, and you would imagine they would do that. Now, where it starts getting interesting with this article, it says, well, it's sort of like they're juggling. Horenstein said, if for whatever reason there were significant issues in that effort, he's referring to the pipeline, we certainly have the opportunity to pivot back to the desal facility, which seems kind of nebulous. I don't know. What do you think? What do you?
Well, there's right now you have Fort Bragg going for a rental of a desal unit, and it's much less than Marin Municipal, but Fort Bragg is looking at about 100,000 gallons a day on their rental. They're also looking at bringing water in from Willits on tank cars with the Skunk Railroad.
Right. I guess that's that later in the article, actually. Larry Bragman brought up the issue for Marin County. That doesn't seem to be too much of a great idea. But the 191,000 residents of Marin is a good figure for people to keep in mind when you're thinking of, like what you just mentioned, of 1 gallon per possible user. It says right now, residents it serves in central and southern Marin face the prospect of running out of reservoir supplies as early as June, talking about next year, if the upcoming winter is as dry as the last. Now that's interesting to actually imagine running out of the reservoir in June. He says the District 7 reservoirs in the Mount Tam watershed are just 40% full. This is actually the IJ saying this after 2 consecutive dry winters. Now,
Right.
When I spoke to the GM Horenstein, I really should try to speak to him again. 40% I thought was the figure where we were at back in April, I think it was, or early May when I spoke to him. So they're still using that figure. It says the reservoirs make up 75% of district water. Imports have already been reduced by 20%. Imports could be reduced even more in the coming months. Now Ben had told me that they were going to be definitely cut off in July. So here it says that implies almost that they're still going on.
Right.
In 2010, district customers approved Measure S, which requires the utility to gain voter approval before it can construct a desal plant. Horenstein said the district has no plans to put a measure before the voters at this point. And that's fascinating, right? That's another 6 months to a year if they decided to go that route to probably get that to be approved by the voters, you would think.
But also there was a suit that was filed against the desal plant on went to court because of the brine effluent from the desal plant, and it was saying that the water district didn't have the means to mitigate the brine byproduct.
This is a suit back when Marin County
2011, 2012.
Well, and that, yeah.
So Ben's going to have to deal with that too.
Yeah. Well, that's the deep ecology issues, the side effects of. We're going to get into that. It said the water district had previously considered building desals on San Francisco Bay and tested 2 small plants in the 90s and early 2000s. Anyways, if the upcoming winter is as dry as the last and no additional water supplies are available, including a cessation of Sonoma water imports, which I think has already happened, but it implies it still is, Marin residents could expect draconian conservation measures.
Right.
All right, so listen to this. We know this is going to have to, if it does, the scenario rolls out as a poor winter rain, Under this scenario, all outdoor water would be banned and residents would be asked to cut water use by about 70%, from an average of 129 gallons per day to as little as 37 gallons per day.
Right?
Now, I'd have to ask Ben if that means household or individuals. Do they get to?
Individuals. Individuals.
Okay. And so,
But
so far, we, the citizens of Marin County, have failed to achieve the 40% conservation mandate district set in April. Says recently, we've at least got up to 28% this past week. But I would imagine if they got to that draconian thing, they would probably have to put some kind of fines in then if anybody wasn't meeting it, right? Or how would they have any idea?
oh, it could be as simple as just turning in your neighbor for outdoor watering,
Yeah.
or uh, if you want to really get draconian, then you would prohibit the sale of turf. Turf is a high water use. Usually, you just say you can't buy turf in Marin County.
Anyways, there was a letter to the editor in the Chronicle, yesterday's paper, in regards to a article or an op-ed article about desal in the Chronicle. I hadn't read the original article, but the writer is warning that in Israel, which is heavily dependent on desal plants, that apparently there's all kinds of environmental issues going on right now with the increasing brine content along the ocean water is affecting marine life, and this the gentleman who wrote the letter implies that it might be affecting human health too. And I think that this is sort of the issues with desal of going that route, right? Explain a little bit about the desal and how that process of churning salt water into clean water works.
Well, for every gallon of ocean water that you put through a desal process, you get a half a gallon of fresh water, and then you get a half a gallon brine product. So if Marin were looking for a plant that could kick out 6 million gallons a day, then they would have 6 million gallons of brine product to do with. So you're going to have to take that product, get it over to the water treatment plant, and mix that in with the finished water treatment product. And hopefully that doesn't make the area where you're dumping it too briny, too briny, because it could affect the ecology in the area.
So it doesn't, they have to treat it first. They just can't put this raw super salt, super brine content directly back into the bay again. Is that right?
Well, you're talking about Israel, and what I can tell you right now, Israel is the leading reuse water country in the world. 87% of their water is reused.
Wow.
And but if you're not going to allow the reused water that's been treated already to mix in with the brine, and you're just going to dump the brine in the Mediterranean, it may make the area, maybe it's going to kill the fishing there. I don't know.
Well, it just seems like we're watching some really speaking of our world of California, what with the fires going on outside us and the drought, the fact that if you want to put the whole thing in context, where a lot of people want to talk about global warming, we are a civilization that uses almost 94 or maybe it's 95 million barrels of oil every day, which I would think that about 95% of that goes into the atmosphere, and it just didn't start yesterday. So we've got this. We're in this kind of in this whirlwind of almost maybe whirlwind is well, maybe it is actually maybe it is a whirlwind of our issues of coming up against our you know the limits of our technology and not being really advanced enough to understand the natural systems. We're kind of
Well, in the 50s and 60s, the state was on a path to have 10 nuclear power stations built, and this would have provided your power, rather than the oil and gas for the state. And since '79, you've had the three nuclear power stations that were online. You've only got one left, and that's Diablo Canyon. And Diablo Canyon was they were slated to have a desal plant there a long time ago, and it just went by the wayside because of the whole anti-nuke movement. They didn't want to put a desal station where there was not going to be any power.
well, yeah, and the anti-nuke movement was pretty strong going into the 70s, and then it seemed like the nuclear power plants themselves became so expensive because of so many different elements of what was going on. For me, it would just not seem to be a good kind of more of civilization's hubris, that being not looking to the future to start storing this waste and
Right.
it's going to just be all right for 50,000 years and not, like there'll be no other civilizations after us. I mean, it seems to me like the wrong way to go, not being responsible for your community, your planet, or for any descendants of our children's children. So
Sure. Even with the brand new nuclear power plants that they have, you have 80% less of a waste product, but you still have waste.
yeah,
So
and they still haven't figured out where to. At this point in 2021, there's still no storage place in America, I think, for that.
the Yucca Mountain supposedly, but I think the folks in Nevada would not care to have all the boxcars of nuclear waste shipped over to Yucca Mountains.
Well, I think that was in the first couple of months of the Obama administration where they ended the Yucca Mountain as being a potential storage space, whether that was a gift to Senator Harry Reid or whatever. But
Who knows?
I think it's up in the air. But anyways, that gets us back to Novato, and there is there's this big insurance company called Fireman's Fund. Why don't you lay out the drama there, Rick, for people?
Well, what's happening is that building has been vacant for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a developer that's come in and they want to develop the property. It's, I believe, 40 acres. And they want to build 1,080 living units there. And this, I think 20% of it is going to be affordable. And there'll be single units there, maybe 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, and some single family residents. And they did a presentation about a week and a half ago, and the developers were saying, well, the other thing that we have there is we have the reuse water pipeline from North Marin Water coming through our property. So we would use that as the irrigation rather than drawing off of North Marin water. And of course, then when the developer's presentation was opened up for Q&A, the second question was from one of the neighbors who said, "Great, you want to run that reuse pipeline through our neighborhood so that we can draw on it too?" So,
well, let's get to the point of that. The city of Novato voted to approve this development with the sort of the state mandate kind of hanging over the heads of everybody, but also this economic incentive to either increase taxes or to do better for your local businesses could make more money with an additional 1,000+ population. But yet,
right.
but yet there doesn't seem to be any connection with a sense of the urgency of where we sit with our water. That's what is to me sort of I don't know, I wouldn't say stunning because you get used to this kind of foolishness, but don't you feel that there's some kind of terrible disconnect between anything that might be said to be practical with this?
Well, North Marin water gets 75% of their water from Mendocino, and the other 25% comes from Stafford Lake. And they have to be very sensitive to where the water is going to come from. And one of the things that I can foresee happening is if things get really bad, you're going to have Marin Municipal and North Marin. North Marin will say, we're going to take our tertiary treated wastewater and we're going to blend it in with the potable. That's something that the state has for the next 80 years up to 2100, and it's the game plan there. And if things get really bad, I think the game plan is going to go for water reuse.
Well, I feel like we're at this exciting, I believe, turning point in California's history. And I'm trying to put the best possible spin on it, hoping it works out for all of us, because we're really coming up against sort of like some of the limits of this idea of always driving this civilization to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We lost 170,000 people in population last year. Many people, environmentalists, for 50 years, at least 50 years ago anyways, they were allowed to speak about overpopulation. Now we don't.
Right.
But we have to come to grips with this on behalf of our children and our grandchildren, the next generations of what kind of dangerous, we're just creating a unsustainable, potentially, just, well, anyways, it's.
Well, what's going to happen is water rights are going to tighten and get even more draconian. You're going to have people who had water rights prior to the 20th century. Suddenly, their water rights won't be worth anything. And eventually, you'll get the if things get really bad, you're going to get the state coming in there with the Water Resources Board. And I'm sure with a number of lawsuits, they're going to step in there and they're going to say, well, you've got X, you need to move it over to Y.
Yeah.
And they could do that.
Well, I've got to wrap this up, and my brain goes one way. I feel like you're looking at a world of challenges for the state and this regulatory body, and in some level, as a culture or as a community, I think California, we're going to need to have a different lifestyle than what we as a generation got used to. And
oh yeah.
We're going to learn about conservation. We're going to have to learn about living within our limits, and I think we will.
Well, what is going to have to happen is you've had one party rule for too long, and you have to. I don't care if it's a Republican or somebody else, but you have to have a. If you have a pro view, you have to have a con view, and you have to have the two of them button heads against one another, so that you can get something to work out in the meantime. But you don't. And this legislature that we have right now they've got it too easy. They don't have to fight for very much at all.
Well,
They can just throw ideas out there and say this is what it's going to be.
I mean, all right, let's even deeper than that. The whole election, the manipulation of, you call it one party or even the two party, what they did in 2010 with the so-called open primary proposition, which
Yes.
called it an open primary, but it created a closed democracy. It eliminated.
Oh, that is such a beautiful line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's beautiful. But,
Oh, it's true.
Yeah, no, it is true. And so people say, oh, this is a manipulation of democracy to do this recall. The fact is, in this confused recall, at least the voices of people, anybody, has a chance to speak. So when we go back to a regular election, I don't know if people realize this, you only end up voting for the two candidates who get the two most votes on this primary day. And then no Green Party, no alternative party gets to be there.
Right.
And to me, that's just what you're talking about. Not only no pros or cons, but nothing out of the establishment, nothing that can tend to try to wake the whole thing up, because it needs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyhow, it's going to work. It's working out every day. Right? It's working out. It's going to be, it's just going to be fascinating the years up ahead here as we try to just keep the whole show rolling.
Well, the show is going to have to be the adult in the room. I don't see too many adults. I don't see it in the legislature. They just get up there and it's the same old stuff coming down the pike, and it's and there is a blindness to how terrible things can be in the next 2 years. Suppose you don't have any rain for 2 years.
Yeah.
After this.
No. Look at that scenario that was spelled out in June of 2022. Conceivably, our reservoirs, could be completely depleted.
Right.
It would be dependent on either a pipeline. We could
to
be
nowhere.
You're joking about the renting the desal plant to get 1 gallon per person per day. Oh, I don't know. It's kind of a interesting scenario.
Right.
But, it's amazing. It's just we're coming up against what the Native Americans tried to warn us, our ancestors, in so many ways, about how we mistreat the planet, mistreat the earth, and how you can't eat money if you keep.
Right.
I see. Well, we're going to work this out in California, Rick, and
well, hopefully we will.
Somehow, or we won't, but we will. And thank you for joining me. We went over the time, but we always do that, and that's okay. We'll have the concluding part. So